What if I told you that Japan thinks you're a terrible tourist? Yeah, I know, that sounds harsh, but hear me out. There are a lot of things that tourists do in Japan that locals quietly can't stand. The good news is that it's easy to avoid these mistakes. If you know what to look out for, you'll have a way more enjoyable trip. So stick around and I'll show you exactly how to avoid making these critical mistakes. But first, where do you even begin planning a trip to Japan? The good news is I've helped tons of people like you plan their dream trips, and I've come up with a free travel guide to Japan, and the link's below. With this first thing, I'm gonna paint a little bit of a picture. Imagine someone bursts into your house, kicks their feet up on your table, and starts making all kinds of demands. Maybe they even tell you to make them a sandwich.
Get me a sandwich!
How would you feel? I'm guessing probably a little annoyed, right? Now here's the thing. You might be doing something similar when you're in Japan, and you might not even be realizing it. When you travel to a new country, it's possible to come off as a bit demanding, but there's an easy way to avoid that, and it's something even big celebrities know when they visit Japan. So what did they do that was so groundbreaking? Yep, they just spoke some basic Japanese. A few basic phrases like konnichiwa, arigato, sumimasen. You can watch as people go from saying things like this to maybe things like this. The thing is, Japanese people really appreciate it. You might not get your own national holiday like Tom Cruise. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. But showing that you're trying goes a long way. It's like saying, hey, I'm a guest here and I want to be a good one. And trust me, they'll love you for it. So this next point can earn you some major points with the locals, and it might not be something that you'd immediately think of as a problem. Okay, let's say you're still buzzing from that amazing sushi or ramen you just had. Your boy loves the ramen. So you call up a friend to do a little humble bragging. But here's the thing, while people around you might not understand what you're saying, we all know the feeling of being in public and overhearing someone's entire conversation. I even found a complaint from someone with some not so nice words. Imagine that. But now you're in Japan where the trains are 10 times quieter than anything you're used to. And it's so silent, you can practically hear each wheel turning on the tracks. And then there's you. So how do you avoid becoming that person? Easy. If you need to take a call, keep it short. You'll have plenty of time to chat later and finish that humble brag. And if it's a longer conversation, I've even seen people step off the train to finish their next call and hop on the next one. Luckily, in Japan, trains run every few minutes, so it shouldn't be a problem. And it should go without saying, being crazy loud or crazy on the train, that's a definite no-go. This quick tip not only shows respect, but lets you enjoy the calm and also keeps people from talking trash about you later. Just saying. Alright, speaking of trash, you might need to get your hands dirty with this next point. As you may know, or may not know, Japan's streets are famously clean. Think Mr. Clean level, or even Biggie Smalls if he were in the business of spotless streets. Part of this is thanks to this surprising fact. There aren't many public trash cans around. Imagine catching someone tossing trash out of a car window, or worse, right in front of your house. Or that feeling you get when people stuff garbage into an already overflowing trash bin. Makes you mad, right? Now imagine seeing that on a larger scale, like an entire category of people doing it. That's sort of how it can feel to Japanese locals when they see litter on the streets. They also take it real serious. So much so that in some areas, if you're caught littering as a resident, you could actually risk breaking your lease. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, well, Japanese people do it. True, but I'll come back to that later. How do you avoid leaving trash everywhere when the bins are nowhere to be found? Simple. Invest in a small trash bag that you can keep on you. Something sort of like this. You can take your trash with you and throw it away the right way. Japan is even going out of its way to add more public trash cans and even smart bins that monitor the amount of trash in them to help out. But taking this small step yourself goes a long way in showing respect. And trust me, people notice. Let's talk about something we've all seen before. You know that one friend, let's just call him Bob, who can't just help but say,
but back home, we do it this way. Or over here, we do it like this. When I was coming up, we do it like this. I used to pray for time.
No kid. Bob's the type who'd walk into a cozy, traditional Japanese inn, a Japanese-style hotel, ryokan, and say, oh, why doesn't anyone speak English here? True story. I once had a client of mine complain about something exactly like this. Really, Bob? Newsflash, you're not in Kansas, you're in Japan. I don't really know what you want me to tell you. No surprise that most people speak Japanese in Japan. What are you doing? Here's the thing. Japan has its own way of doing things. And while it might not always match exactly what you're used to, nobody is changing it. Hear me when I say this. Nobody is changing it to make you feel like you're at home.
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Remember, you're in a different country. The hospitality is still going to be there, but just keep that point in mind. So how do you overcome something like this? It's really just simple. You take things as they are. The unfamiliar stuff, the good, the bad, the why are there no trash cans anywhere, it's all part of that experience. And trust me, once you let go of not needing everything to be like back home, your trip will be so much better, and so will your interactions with local Japanese people. Okay, so jump into this next point. We've all heard the saying, rules are meant to be broken. But in Japan, that's not true. There are some rules people follow without a second thought. And it's not just about obedience and harmony and all that. Sometimes there's a much deeper reason behind it. Picture this. You're standing at a crosswalk in Japan and the light's red. No cars are coming for miles, especially if you're like where my host parents live. So you think, why not just go for it? But then you look around and realize that nobody else is crossing. Maybe that one oddball. You see, in Japan, this isn't just about following the rules. It's about showing respect and setting a good example. Even kids in Japan, as young as 6, are out there navigating them streets. Adults make an effort to actually sort of model this kind of behavior. And actually, one of my close Japanese friends said to me sort of in confidence, I won't say their name, they think people who do not wait for the light are trash. That's pretty intense. I know there's a lot of trash talk in the video. Okay. So how do you avoid making this mistake? The next time you're standing at a red light, this should be real obvious. Even if there are no cars for miles, kilometers, I guess, just take a moment to wait. Like that small pause, just doing what everyone else is doing, does show a lot of respect, and it keeps things safe, and it lets you blend in with the locals. It might feel a bit strange at first when you feel like I'm waiting here at this light and it's like I can go, but waiting for a red light is literally one of the easiest ways to show that you respect the local customs. And who knows, I don't know, maybe you'll start to enjoy taking things from a Japanese point of view. Before we keep going, let me know in the comments if you think I've missed something so far. It might be coming later in the video, but drop that comment. So doing this next thing is absolutely sure to rub people the wrong way. In fact, this is the first argument I ever got in with my Japanese dad. It's literally because of this thing. You know how it goes. You're out, you're sightseeing, you're having a good time. You're just trying to fit in that one more thing before your next appointment or whatever. You think, I got time, it'll be quick. You check the clock, things aren't looking good, and you probably know where I'm going. Now you're running late.
He's matching him stride for stride. He's run the whole race with a camera on his shoulder. Just incredible.
And so here's the thing. In some places, there is a lot riding on making sure you're where you need to be and right there when you need to be there. In Japan, timing is everything. They're so serious about it that even in train stations, they issue this thing called a chien shomeisho, which is like a late certificate to prove that like if a train was delayed, it was actually not your fault. You didn't oversleep. Even if your job can mark you and say, hey, like when I was in language school, literally you would be counted absent for the entire day if you were 2 minutes late. That one last stop is why you're running behind. If that's it, then that's on you. So how do you avoid unintentionally offending others by being late? Easy. Give yourself a little buffer. I had to learn this. Arriving early isn't just like courteous or like respectful. It really, I think, goes a long way to show that you respect. I think the key of it is you respect everybody's time, and it leaves a really great impression. It helps people feel like you're being responsible. So here's something you actually might not expect. And it's not just about manners. It's about avoiding major faux pas that could really tick off the people that are hosting you. And actually, I've heard some pretty wild stories. I was surprised with this one. So picture this. You're staying again in a beautiful, let's say traditional Japanese inn, because you probably want to do that at some point and not just do all hotels. But hospitality is top notch. Room is spotless. Everything is laid out perfectly. Fluffy towels, cozy yukata, like, Japanese summer wear. And you've maybe even got some fancy art in the corner. You're packing up to leave and you think, man, would they miss this extra body towel? I need a towel like this. Here's the thing. What might seem like a harmless souvenir to you can actually cause big headaches. I'm talking massive headaches for where you're staying. In fact, some people have gone way beyond towels. Like I've heard of guests, this was wild, walking off from ashtrays all the way to the bidet off the toilet seat. Like, really? That's crazy. You're crazy. In Japan, it's not just frowned upon. It's seen as just simply theft. And especially for these small family-run inns, even minor losses can add up quickly and hurt their business, especially because they're trying to attract more tourists. So how do you avoid doing this and keeping smaller businesses from turning away foreign tourists altogether? That may happen. Resist the urge to take anything that's not explicitly labeled as free, complimentary. Again, resist the urge. If it's not like a disposable toothbrush or like those little bottles of shampoo, literally just leave it where you found it. it. Like, better yet, like if you really love something, ask if you can buy it. Like, they might even sell you a fresh set of sheets or towels or whatever. Like, just ask. Showing respect for the property not only ensures that you're welcome back, but it also keeps the experience positive for the next guest, or making sure that there are other foreign guests that can come. And trust me, the memories are the best souvenir you can take home anyway, like the connections, so on and so forth. So just keep that in mind. So moving right along, let's talk about something most people probably don't think twice about until they're in Japan. I'll talk about that in a second. Again, this one also surprised me when I first heard about it. You walk into a clean, pristine Japanese bathroom and spot that famous Japanese toilet your friend has probably bragged to you about. Seriously, Japanese toilets are an experience. Like, no matter how many times you use them, those heated seats in the winter, absolutely clutch. And spite of differences, right? Like, a toilet's a toilet, you might think. Turns out, common sense ain't so common. So back in my language school days, I remember seeing signs in the bathrooms, like explaining how to use toilets. And I'm thinking, who needs this? Turns out a lot of people didn't know what they're doing. It's gotten so bad in some places that are popular tourist spots, they've started restricting bathroom access altogether. So in Japan, it sounds kind of weird, but maintaining like a level of cleanliness and maintaining clean bathrooms is a form of hospitality, is a point of pride. So what should you do instead? Apparently read the sign, or just like a human, sit down, remain seated for the entire performance. Keep your shoes off the seat. Always flush your toilet paper. Don't put your nasty toilet paper in the trash. Like, don't poop where you shouldn't poop. Mastering the Japanese restroom isn't about just avoiding like really weird moments. It's about keeping the locals, Japanese people, from thinking you don't have any home training. My mom would always say, boy, act like you got some home training. You know where to poop, Let's talk about one of the most unique Japanese experiences, and you're probably gonna want to do this. Visiting an onsen or public bath. It's a chance to sort of soak, relax, forget all your troubles, slow down the pace of your trip. But what if I told you there's a way to completely ruin that experience? And not just for you, but for everybody else too. You walk into the bath area, you got the steam going, water glistening, and you're ready to dip and, take a break. But here's a catch. If you're not familiar with the unspoken rules, you might end up making some serious mistakes. I've heard of people wearing swimsuits or even underwear into the bath. There's a distinction between an open air bath and a hot spring bath, and that's just the beginning. Imagine somebody brushing their teeth next to you while they're soaking in the water, or worse, hopping in the water with soap suds all on their body. Yeah, it might not seem like a big deal, but in Japan it is, and it happens. In Japanese public baths and onsens, it's supposed to be sort of a relaxed space, and it comes with a strict set of etiquette rules. So here's the tip. You should understand the rules before you go. If you're unsure of what they are, look it up. Mostly do what everybody else is doing, especially if they're Japanese. Like, leave your swimsuit and towels out of the water, and for everybody else's sake and yours, do not put soap or toothpaste in the tub. Wash yourself first, and then you enjoy the hot spring. Getting it right means that you get to fully enjoy the onsen experience, and you're gonna avoid those side eyes from the people that are there. Trust me, there's no better experience than having an onsen bath and enjoying that, as long as everybody's playing by the rules. This next one is sort of a universal pet peeve, and nobody likes it. And in Japan, let's be real, it's not an exception. So you're out shopping, maybe you're at a market or some popular store, and you're standing in a long line. You're waiting patiently, everything seems cool, everything's moving, and then it happens. One person in front of you is holding their spot, and suddenly a whole crowd, a gang of people shows up and jumps in front of you, and now you might have been 2 spots away from the register, and now you're behind 5.
I am 329th in line, and nobody forget it. Well, at least the line is moving.
We've all been there. In Japan, this is sort of like, again, a lot of places, but in Japan specifically, it's a no-go. So whether you're at like a theme park or a store, lining up for food, jumping into a line late, hey man, hold my spot, isn't just seen as rude. It's also unfair to anybody else who's been waiting. I know that's probably universal again, but definitely rude in Japan. So what do? How do you avoid this? If you're in a group, literally just make sure that everybody gets in line from jump. Keep things simple, keep things fair, keep it respectful. Let's be real. Nobody wants to be known as that group that messed up the line. Again, especially in places that are very crowded and everybody wants to buy the thing, it creates a good impression and people remember that. So this last one is a bit of a mashup, but trust me, if you don't want to achieve national infamy in Japan, this is something you're definitely going to want to avoid. You got this, and And this, no good. I'm not gonna show some of the more extreme clips like from the Johnny Somalis of the world or the really controversial Logan Paul clips from a few years back, because honestly, they're just disturbing and I think it's not worth showing. Here's the main thing. Doing things that are clearly and blatantly wrong won't just ruin your trip, it damages the reputation of every single tourist who comes to Japan after you, literally. So how do you avoid this? Super easy. Just don't be that guy. Just don't be that person. Respect the culture, enjoy the trip, and leave Japan with good memories and not bad headlines. That's all you gotta do. Like I said earlier in the video, you might be thinking, but Japanese people do some of these things, except maybe the last one. And you're right, to be honest, you're absolutely right. So why is it that tourists get a much worse reputation? It's because Japan is still a largely homogenous country. A lot of Japanese people live in Japan. And when you stand out as a foreigner, any sort of bad behavior is amplified. And what makes Japan sort of unique and even trickier in some ways is that in Japan, offending somebody isn't always gonna result in an immediate confrontation, fight, whatever. Instead, a lot of the consequences are more subtle. But they last a lot longer. Think again, no foreigners allowed at this public bath, no foreigners allowed at this apartment complex, for people who live there. And so if you disrespect sacred spaces, you're harassing locals, or you're causing just all sorts of chaos for somebody, you might be the only representation of what a foreign visitor to Japan is. And that can absolutely unfairly impact respectful travelers and expats who are trying to do it the right way. Please be considerate. So you could have learned all of that stuff. That's great. But how do you learn to actually interact with Japanese people and build real connections? Watch this next video to find out.